Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Um, I see we have some people joining us for the first project. Before we get to that, usually we introduce the ADR members so that the people presenting the project and or commenting know who everybody is. I'm Mark Kruchnit, the current chair of the ADR and Ross resident.
Me?
I'm Stephen Supro, architect and Ross resident.
Go, Joey.
Oh, I'm Joey Buckingham, Ross resident, designer, and ADR member.
Mark Fritz, architect, Ross president, ADR.
Extraordinaire.
And I'm Laura Dewar, Ross resident, architect or former architect. And yeah.
Okay, so we always start off open time for public comments that are not related to our agenda items. If anyone in the audience wants to speak for up to 3 minutes about something that is not on our agenda tonight, this is your time to do so. And since no one has chosen to do that, we will go to the new business at 5 Allen Lane. And just to let the people know how we do this, the first part is the town employees present a project, then the owners and or design team comment on their project, any comments they want to make as they're presenting it. The ADR asks questions of the design team and or owners. And then at that point, we open it up to the public. If there's anyone in the public who wants to comment, and we've received several emails about the project, and some of those people I believe are here that will probably be commenting on it. And then we will bring it back to the ADR for our final comments and recommendations. Matthew, would you like to present the project at 5 Allen Lane? Or Patrick?
Yes, I will do that for you. Thank you, Chair and ADR group members. Sharing my screen now, brief presentation. The project before you is the Berry Residence at 5 Allen Lane. And here's the project site. It's a 26,200 square foot lot. As we can see, it has a very irregular shape. At the left side of the lot, or the west side, Allen Lane has frontage along pretty much the entire western portion of the lot. So that would be where the front setback is measured from. The eastern property line is extending here, and this would be the rear property line. So the more extensive rear property line is measured from that perspective. And it has very short sides here at the south and the north. So in terms of buildable area and in terms of the setback, there's basically a small triangle of space here in the center of the lot that is actually outside of the setbacks based on the irregular shape of this lot. Project history reflects the irregular shape of the lot and the need to provide some consideration to that. 6 variances were previously granted for improvements with non-conforming setbacks. They include a new deck to the residence that was in existence previously, the new house, which exists now, constructed in 1992, new air conditioner, new play structures, and also residential additions and alterations. The current project description is to install a new pool that would measure 38 by 17 with an integrated spa at grade in the open lawn area, basically south of the existing house. There would also be a new pool equipment and enclosure, which I'll discuss a little more in a minute. The project also includes installing a perforated drain rock energy dissipator drainage system to account for the increased runoff. And this project does propose to increase impervious surfaces rather than offset that. And that's primarily because there are few opportunities to remove existing impervious surfaces on the property. Staff has identified the most likely location of existing impervious surfaces to be removed as this rear patio, which the applicants have identified specifically as a feature they would like to retain for its design value. So that's why they're proposing the energy dissipator and perforated drain system. And the colors and materials are shown here, high quality colors and materials. Regarding the pool equipment enclosure, it was initially proposed to be installed in the existing playhouse structure, which is shown here in this photograph. The playhouse structure is located within the rear setback, quite close to the rear property line. And that was objected to by a neighbor adjacent to that encroachment based on potential for noise impacts. And so the applicant has revised the project proposal, and I believe they can speak to that further, but they have revised the project proposal so that the pool equipment and enclosure would be located opposite the rear yard on the street side of the lot, basically as far from the rear yard neighbors as well as the south and north neighbors as possible. So really as far from all neighbors as possible. And that location would be behind this existing dense landscape screening, as well as in front of a retaining wall. There may be one or two plants that would have to be removed to put that enclosure and with pool equipment up against that retaining wall. And just back to the previous slide, this is the location approximately where the pool equipment is proposed to be located currently. So this is a view down the long end of the property. This is the existing playhouse that was previously proposed to have the equipment. The new location is now on the opposite side, behind the landscape screening and against this retaining wall, essentially. And the design of the new enclosure would essentially match the character of the existing wood board fence. There hasn't been a design worked up yet, but it would essentially be a very simple wood board enclosure. And it's envisioned that ivy would be planted around and on top of it and would basically envelop the structure in a very short period of time. It would probably blend in very well into that, embedded into that existing landscaping. And of course, any pool equipment or mechanical equipment is required to meet to not exceed the noise standard of 55 decibels at the property line. So that would apply in this case. Public comments have been received. Bruce Potter, 10 Brookwood Lane, indicated support of the project. Jeff and Kate Babcock at 14 Redwood Drive indicated objection to the previously proposed location of the pool equipment, which was the playhouse, based on the potential noise impacts. They also expressed concerns about noise impacts from pool usage. And I believe the property owners, Chris and Nadine, may be able to speak further on some communications they've had with the neighbor about that. Also, Dick Bobo at 16 Redwood Drive and Don Kelleher at 61 Bridge Road, which are abutting properties, also support the project. So for this evening, staff is requesting that the ADR group provide recommendations on the design and location of the proposed new pool, the design and location of the proposed new pool equipment and enclosure, which has been revised, as I indicated, to be on that street side. The adequacy or need for additional visual screening, if any is needed, for the pool and or the pool equipment. And also to please comment on the low impact development standards, which are part of the design review guidelines. In particular, the low impact development standards place a high priority on no net increase in impervious surfaces. This project does propose to increase impervious surfaces primarily in order to retain an existing character defining feature. So staff requests that the ADR group also provide an opinion or recommendation on the retention of that existing patio feature and the appropriateness then of the increased impervious surface. with respect to the location of the pool and the concept of the setbacks, obviously the ADR group does not look at setbacks. It's not a land use body. However, the design review guidelines and standards do provide for consideration of the location of features with respect to privacy. And I've provided the privacy guidelines here, and I'll read just what I believe is the most pertinent aspect. Decks, balconies, and other outdoor areas, such as pools and pool equipment, should be sited to minimize noise, to protect the privacy and quietude of surrounding properties, and landscaping should be provided to protect privacy between properties. So to the extent that this project does or does not do that, staff is recommending the ADR group's recommendation. That concludes my presentation. I believe Chris and Nadine Berry are also available to speak on the project, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Before the Berries make a presentation, actually, do the Berries wish to make a presentation before the ADR starts asking its questions?
We're happy to at least add any color and maybe relate briefly to a great conversation that we had with the Babcocks yesterday. You know, this is one of these things where sometimes just getting comfortable with the uncomfortable pays great dividends. And to their credit, Jeff and Kate reached out to us yesterday and explained their concerns. And our wish was never to create a problem for them, our neighbors. We've had great times in our backyards collectively, having drinks and just chatting about life in general. And I think their reaching out to us was a really important step in understanding where the concerns were. And they were really around, as Matthew described, where the pool equipment sat. And we were very amenable to making that change. And also really being conscientious as neighbors about if we have anyone at the pool and anticipate any noise, letting them know and making sure that's okay with them, which again, as good neighbors, we are very comfortable with. And frankly, would ask them to reciprocate in the sense that if there was too much noise, letting us know, because it's probably not us, the parents, so much as us with kids. And the reality is we have one off at college, soon to be 2 in a year, and then another who will be graduating from Drake in 2 short years. So I think that issue generally, as I understand it, is less so as kids get older, but nonetheless, I think it was at least in my mind, and I'd love for anyone to chime in if they feel differently, but it felt like a really great example of how when we communicate a little bit more, sometimes we get a lot further. And so I left that conversation feeling much, much better about where we both stood and having mutual respect. And I'm hoping they felt the same way.
Great. Thank you. Let's see, I have a couple things to say to the ADR, but I think based on what you're saying here, I'm just going to leave those till the end, till we have ADR communication time. Because I had a conversation with Julie in regards to some recent pool proposal projects that are different from this one. Okay, so I'll just open it up now for the ADR to ask questions. If anyone has any questions for clarifications before we open it up to the audience.
I just have one, Mark, and I think this might be a question to Matthew. What the town considers the front, rear, and side yards of this particular property, just for clarification on my part. Has that been clarified to the Berries, or how does the town look at that?
Sure. I believe it's clear. I'd be happy to go over that. Let's see. Let me use this this image here. So north is to the left of the page here. So the front property, the front of the property is always along the street frontage, and the street frontage is along this entire area. So this front setback is measured along this area. And then the rear property line is opposite the front property line, essentially. And so this would be the rear property line here at the top of the page. And so a 40-foot setback is required to be measured from that property line, and that extends basically beyond the midpoint of the property. The setback lines have not been drawn on the site plan, and that's a comment that I've provided to the preparer. And then the side setbacks would be this short south side property line, and the north side, which is not shown in this image that's over here.
Thank you for the clarification. Yeah, I just want to make sure I was properly oriented.
Stephen, Joey, Laura, do you have any questions?
Yes. What landscape is proposed along the property line that abuts the Redwood Drive neighbors where the Playhouse is?
So there is no landscaping proposed. There's no additional landscaping proposed as part of this project. I believe the project description indicates that the applicants feel that there's enough existing screening essentially around the property.
Okay.
So they're not currently proposing to add new landscaping.
Okay.
Stephen, are you good with everything? Laura, any questions?
I have no questions.
No questions.
Great. Okay, Matthew, would you like to open it up to the audience?
Yes, I believe Patrick can handle that in terms of public comments.
Sure, I will be happy to host the public comment. So now would be the time that we'd allow for public comment on this project. If you'd like to make a comment, you can raise your hand. It's an option on the participants screen, or you can also do it with the camera. That'll work too. And you'll have 3 minutes for your comments. So I see the Babcocks have raised their hand, so I'm going to unmute you at this point. I think you'll have to unmute yourselves.
Are we able to see everyone? Let's see.
Okay, try again, Kate.
Good evening, everyone. ADR Group, respected members of our neighborhood. We are grateful to have had the conversation with the Beeries last night. I'm grateful that they have decided to move the placement of pool equipment room and also receptivity that they are available to our communication and calls about if there should be excessive noise that is disturbing in the pool area. So we are grateful for that. We have not experienced a receptivity by a neighbor when there is excessively loud noise and music playing with the pool parties. So to have a neighbor next door who is a monumental feature and characteristic of the Berries. So we're very grateful for that. My husband has indicated we need to publicly acknowledge that we withdraw our objection to the plan. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your emails and communication here.
And I'm not seeing any other hands raised at this time, Chair.
Okay, in that case, I'll bring it back to the ADR for comments. One of the things that Patrick pointed out, I'll go first this time, is a rarity since there's no actual architecture involved. One of the things that Patrick sent over in the ADR instructions is that the ADR group recommendations on minimum separation distance for privacy may be the same or different, less or greater than the zoning setbacks, which it never actually occurred to us as the ADR to ever make the setbacks greater than the required. I don't think we've ever told anybody when they had a 20-foot setback that it needed to be 30 feet away from the property line. And I don't know that we ever will. In this case, it's going to require a variance because of the irregular shaped lot. And this does seem to be a hardship, this irregular shaped lot. I believe the front and rear setbacks, when added together, would be greater than the width of the lot, or in this case, the length of the lot. To me, the pool placement seems fine. I believe when I spoke to the homeowners, they mentioned that they wanted to move the pool slightly closer to the road to have it align better with their house. I'm not sure if they still feel that way or they're happy with where it is on this diagram. To me, either way, whether it's 17 or 20 feet away from the rear, what I consider to be the rear property line, what the town considers, is fine with me. I was going to strongly suggest to the homeowners that they move the pool equipment out of the setback and far away from all neighbors. As quiet as it is, what they're going to get, it's still going to be noisier than nothing. And so it's nice to see that located next to the road and not the neighbors. In regards to the impervious surfaces, I'm really not that concerned about it. To me, if there's been enough rain where all the ground is saturated and the pool has risen the 6 inches already to be at the level of the coping, at that point, having impervious surfaces isn't going to help. So to me, it doesn't really make a difference one way or the other on this project. I think it's fine as proposed. Who would like to go next?
Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I have no additional comments based on the odd configuration of the lot. I feel that it's in the best location it could be. And in terms of the material selection, it seemed appropriate for the house. And yeah, so no other comments.
Okay. Mark?
One additional question around potential lighting. I didn't see any spec'd out. I forgot to ask that in the earlier segment of the meeting. But that's always something just to consider, whether or not there are additional path lighting or any other lighting that's being added to the project. Just always to be considerate about that. I can't imagine that there's anything to super worry about. I did mention to the homeowners when I was out there, just from an architectural standpoint, not from a sound attenuation standpoint, but purely from an architectural standpoint, I would love to see the pool centered on that exit from the home. I think it's telling that the photograph in the bottom left of what we're looking at on the screen is kind of an axial shot, and it makes me think that the pool should be centered on that. That's purely aesthetic. And I think one other point, we've mentioned this in past meetings, I know that the spa can be some of the louder sections in pools. So I might recommend just flipping the spa and the stairs, especially if the pool slid to the west a little more. Just so the spa is a little further away from that property line where you have potential neighbors sitting outside. Again, probably won't make a huge difference, but every little bit can help. So I think those are the only two things that, just concerned about lighting, just understand if there is any pathway lighting or uplightings of any of the landscaping elements. And then I, mentioned the axis of the pool. That's it though. Totally appropriate for this lot. And I actually think that the rear yard is kind of this side. So that's how the property operates. I understand that it may not be that way from a zoning perspective, but it seems like it's in the rear yard to me.
Thank you. Stephen?
I don't have anything to add. I can support it as is proposed here. And I also am comfortable with the impervious surfaces remaining and not seeing a need for a trade-off there.
Okay, great. Matthew, do you have enough?
I believe that's clear.
Joey?
Yeah.
Joey?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Joey, I thought you were
Okay.
already gone.
That's okay. That's okay. I also support this pool. I think unlike a lot of the others we've seen, this deep, big, beautiful grassy lawn kind of begs for a pool, a long, narrow pool, and it seems very appropriate there. Like the others, I just think it would be better architecturally if it were centered on that opening from the house, which would also, in addition, get it further away from the neighbors that were worried about noise. I would also consider flipping the spa because that is the noisiest part of the pool, and it doesn't really matter if it's closer to the road. I was also going to mention you might consider, my pool is 15 by 40, and that's a very nice dimension. It might skinny your pool up a little bit and make it longer. Just might get it even further out of the setback. But in conclusion, I think because it's such an irregular lot, there are plenty of findings to support this pool project. Lastly, I would put the equipment on the street side. And I wonder if you thought just for your own project, you might want to park it further, as I'm looking at this plan, bottom right corner of the lot. Like get it as far away from the pool and the house as possible. Because another thing going for this pool is that the street is elevated above the grade of the pool, so you can kind of tuck things in there.
Yeah.
So if I could just make a comment. At the south end of the lot does abut other residential property owners in this location where my mouse is here. So if the pool equipment and enclosure were located at the south end of the lot, it would actually be closer to these residential properties.
Okay.
So I believe that this, or approximately right here, is where it's located, or where it's proposed to be located, is probably the best equidistant location from all adjacent property owners.
Okay. Lastly, I would consider adding a little more screening to the property line there to the left as you're looking out at the pool, just for your own privacy and their privacy. But I generally support the project.
Okay, so Matthew, it looks like we have unanimous support with half of the ADR recommending that they move the pool a little closer to the street to align it better with those doors for aesthetic reasons, and consider switching the hot tub location.
Got it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support, and best wishes to everyone. I know these are tough times, so thanks for all your time.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have more ADR stuff?
We
Yeah,
do.
we have some meeting minutes, I think.
Okay.
Well, and also there's
Or
staff
others.
communication.
Yeah, that's right.
So based on our conversation, and we were all here except for Stephen, who was then in the emails, we had emailed Patrick about talking to the town council, and Julie, the mayor, was nice enough to spend some time with me on the questions that people had posed at the end of last meeting. So I just wanted to go over that with everybody on the ADR, and anyone else who's in the audience who can listen. So what Julie said, and I'm assuming based on the recent votes that she probably speaks for most of the town council members in this regard. She said that in general, the ADR were doing a very good job with the recommendations and saving the town council a lot of time by doing what was previously their job. One thing we should keep in mind on the ADR is we should not be recommending things that the town council will not pass, because that ends up wasting the time and money of the homeowners. So we should try to approve things that we believe they're going to approve and not approve things that they're not going to approve. And I wanted to talk about two recent projects that we dealt with that had pools, and I discussed them both with her. And the first was 70 Ivy Road, which was unanimously passed by the town council. And, you know, they agreed that it was okay to have a pool that was almost completely in the setback or significantly in the setback because it was an unusually shaped lot. And most importantly, the variance that the homeowner was requesting was not in someone else's setback. It was the road, a public area, and the one neighbor that strenuously objected to the existence of any pool was not affected by this setback that was being violated with the pool. And that was the main reason she believes that they approved 70 Ivy Road. And 34 Poplar also recently came. And if you remember, when it was first proposed, it was either 2 or 4 feet away from the property line. And we had some discussion about whether or not that was appropriate, whether or not the privacy of the neighbor would be affected. And in her mind, that 4-foot proposed setback was not even in the gray area, and the town council almost certainly would have rejected it, even if we had unanimously recommended it. She just didn't think there was any way to pass something like that, and it would have set a horrible precedent going forward if it had been approved. And she recalled one of the ADR members saying something to the effect of, you know, not all lots in Ross are meant to have pools, and that you can't really put something on the side just because that's better for you if it's going to be worse for your neighbor. I think it was Joey that said something about making the neighbors feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
So from that, I think we could take that in the future, if something like that comes up, we should not be recommending something so close to a setback. And was that everything that I had on my notes? Oh, and one other thing I didn't mention tonight, because everybody seemed to be in such agreement on this project by the time it got to us. Obviously, there were some complaints that came in, but normally if those objections had stayed, I would have reiterated that we're not supposed to approve, or I should say recommend or not recommend something based upon the current occupants of the house or the current neighbors. And if they have health issues or current likes or dislikes, that's really not what we're supposed to be doing. It should be based upon design review and what a normal Ross resident would think of as far as privacy is concerned, and not someone who might have some handicap or illness, however horrible it may be, to have vertigo that really shouldn't affect the neighborhood. Sorry, okay, so that was, well, I just wanted to share that with you since several of you had asked about that, and we wanted to have a full conversation, but because of the Brown Act, it really doesn't work that way, and it has to sort of be one person telling me and then me telling everybody.
I have one question if you ask Julie about when something like the Poplar one, where it basically, I think it was not unanimous, but it was a majority saying like, no, don't even bother. And then it comes back the next month, 2 feet further away from the property line, but essentially the same thing, which I just feel is kind of a waste of our time and a waste of the town's time to renotice and get all those letters. It's actually hours that we are paying town employees to review something that was basically said no the first time. Is there any guidance on that these things just keep coming back?
I did not ask that question, but I imagine Patrick and or Matthew might have a comment on that. I'd be surprised if you're able to say, no, I won't look at a revised plan.
Yeah, I think that's correct. You know, with our responsibility is to allow applicants to, you know, present their projects to this group, and if they feel strongly that they may get a different recommendation from the group based on the changes they've made, that's their prerogative. We will do all we can for cost recovery as far as staff time that's spent working on it. We do take deposits for these projects, so a project that requires more staff time will take a larger deposit, so they'll have a smaller refund at the end, or potentially we'll bill them again if we go over that amount. And there is a certain point where we can make the call on a project by project basis if it looks like it's going to be a waste of everyone's time, that we would recommend that they just go straight to council because they've gotten the response from this group. And it's essentially an appeal at that point. So, so it is, we try to give the choice to the applicant, but we do make sure that the town has adequate cost recovery in those cases.
Okay, thanks.
Stephen, were you about to say something before? I think I cut you off.
No, I mean, you really touched on it in the point that you made. My question is kind of similar, but on the flip, where you might have someone, it happened on Bolinas, I think, in the last year or so, where there was a project that proposed a pool with almost zero setback, and the neighbor that was affected was supportive, and it was approved that way, I think because of their support. You know, I don't know if it really was proportional for the lot, but it kind of was, everyone was so happy about everything that we didn't have a problem with it. But I think the flip is also true, where we have to think about future occupants of those surrounding buildings and not just the cozy relationship that could exist during the time of the application.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I remember the project and remember being shocked that the neighbors were fine with a pool. I think it was 6 feet away from their kitchen window.
Right.
Which might have even been a bay window, so it might have been even closer. But you're right, that should be true in the reverse as well. When there's a great relationship and we approve something that seems outlandish on the face of it, just because everyone there seems to be okay with it.
Right.
I also think we have a bit of a duty. There might be people who don't really understand what the plans are going to mean to them. You know, it might be presented by their neighbor that, oh, this won't be that bad. And, you know, some people don't know how to read plans. And they might be saying something's okay that they actually don't understand. It's just, I think, another responsibility we have, given that we do understand plans.
Oh, and sorry, one more thing that just occurred to me that was said in my notes. And it was related to your point, Joey, that when we do say no to something and it comes back slightly changed, if you still don't like it, you should be firm and not just say, well, that's a compromise. We told them 20 feet, they were at 2, now they're at 8. Okay.
Yeah.
She did say, you know, you should be firm with what it should be, not just the midway point from where someone starts a negotiation.
Right. That's very true.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to communicate that. Now, the staff probably has some communication to us since I wasn't even supposed to speak then.
I don't really. I think I appreciate you bringing up that topic and having the discussions with the mayor. I do see that we have a council member with her hand raised. So I'm wondering if, so I have no staff communications, and I think as the chair, if you want to open it up for public comment again, we can allow the council member to speak under that category.
Oh, please, Elizabeth.
Thank you. This is a very quick comment. It relates to Joey's comment about neighbors being in support of a project. I think it's important to remember that, or to recognize that many times neighbors really don't want the project, but they don't want a civil war. They want to stay friendly with their neighbors. And so they'll say it's okay, but they really don't want it. And that's where I think ADR and the council have a real role to look at the properties and not the neighbors to say, does this work, yes or no? Because you might get a lot of yeses that there really aren't yeses, but it's harder to say no.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point to keep in mind.
Yeah, definitely good point.
Thank you.
Okay, and we had minutes. Oh, should we go to the minutes to approve?
Okay, that's the next item.
Okay, I read through the minutes and they seem fine to me. I would recommend we approve them. Does someone second that or have any changes?
Approve.
Did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. And we don't have to do a roll call if everyone just says aye if you approve, or nay if you have a big problem with the minutes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So it looks like those pass unanimously. So the next item on the agenda is election of officers. So we don't actually have a, well, actually I'll have to go back and look at the policy. Matthew, let me know if you recall. I don't know if there's a term limit for the chair and vice chair versus just the regular 3-year terms for for members of the ADR group. But it is the responsibility of the group to a chair and a vice chair. And so I believe we have an incumbent chair. And so he's eligible to remain as chair, or someone else can step up for the chair position. I don't believe we have a vice chair. So that would be a
I think
new
it's
role.
Mark. No, it's
I think
Mark.
it's me.
We do have
Yeah.
a vice chair. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have an incumbent chair and vice chair. They can remain in that position, or they can swap out based on the group's decision. And essentially, the role of the chair, as you're all aware, is to run the meeting, make decisions about how items are ordered, maintain control. And the vice chair steps into that role should the chair not be available, either through absence or abstaining from an item. So I think it's basically a discussion item, and members of the group are free to make a motion for someone to take on that role, and then we can do a vote based on that.
Mark,
Matthew, did you have something you wanted to add?
I have just a quick update. The resolution approving the advisory design review group includes the chair is selected annually by the members of the ADR group at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
We have till January.
You do have till January. I would think it's fiscal year. So we were supposed to do our appointments actually in June, but things kind of slipped out of our hands, so we didn't actually do the appointments until August. But and the last meeting that we held, we were unable to do the election of a chair because we didn't have a full board. So I would say let's elect a chair and vice chair now, and then next June would be when we'd reconsider those roles.
I would put forth Mark Kruchnet again for chair. He does an excellent job if he is willing to retain that position.
Yeah, do you enjoy doing that, Mark? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm fine running the meetings, but if anyone else wants to run the meetings, I'm fine with that too.
I wouldn't mind being vice chair because I feel badly that I have not stepped up to do this yet, but I really just don't feel very comfortable corralling people. So maybe I would learn from you and have to step in once in a while, but I'd prefer not to be the chair.
I can absolutely support Joey passing that baton to whatever side you're on.
Laura, you want to put your hat in the
And
ring?
then there's Laura.
Oh, no, I'm gonna sit this one out. Thank you. Maybe next year.
All right, maybe I spend the next year learning a little more from Mark, how to run a meeting. I just think you're really good at it. You sort of don't tolerate any sideshow stuff, and I think I wouldn't be quite as good at that, but I could work on it.
Okay, it's fine with me.
All right. So we've got a motion for Mark to remain in his role model role as the chair, and then for Joey to be vice chair. Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, don't get sick, Mark.
Great. And before we leave, I did regale my children just earlier this week, Mark, with the story of the time that you unplugged the projector, which was the high point of any chair's actions over the last decade.
Well, I'll stand on that. I'll stand on that one potentially positive experience.
Yeah.
Is there any word about when we might meet in person again?
No, we're according to state guidelines, Ross just moved from purple to red, though. So as far as the COVID-19 guidelines, we have moved into the second or the third of 4 tiers, which is a positive thing. So in downtown Ross, you'll see that nail salons are open again.
Do we have a
in the
nail
fourth
salon?
tier, the
Oh,
one
yeah.
Ross Nails.
Oh.
And then hair salons were recently changed, so they were allowed to be open in the purple tier. But now that we're in the red, restaurants can also have indoor seating up to 25% of capacity. So for Ross, that probably means one table.
It's one person and Tony Tutos.
Yeah, but we are moving in a positive direction.
Oh, good.
But there hasn't been any talk about moving public meetings back into in-person meetings, at
Okay.
least as far as the other jurisdictions in Marin that I've spoken with.
I think it's funny that the colors are the same as Purple Air.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
purple's the worst, and then the red, and then the green, and the yellow, yellow and green.
Maybe Gavin had that app early.
Exactly. Exactly. All right.
Okay, are we all done?
Next meeting is
I should have that information ready.
October 20th, 7 p.m.
That looks correct to me.
I have no plans.
Yes.
Just like every day.
Same. All right.
All right.
Okay,
Great, thank
well,
you.
I suggest we adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Matthew.
Bye.
Thank you,
Good night.
Patrick. Rest of the ADR.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.